Essentially, Remington triggers all function the same way. What I have here in my hand are two variants of our triggers. This is our old trigger. This is the M24 trigger. There's also a 40X trigger and X Mark Pro adjustable trigger, which I don't have here with me today. But essentially, the bottom line is that you have a sear engagement aspect to it. There is a trigger pressure, which has a spring behind it. Trigger over travel, which limits the amount of distance that the trigger bow can actually move. And then sear engagement, which is in the rear. Now, the way these triggers actually operate in very fundamental aspect is that there's two overlapping pieces of metal inside this trigger, which can be viewed from this little window on the side. When you pull the trigger, you actually push the forward piece forward, which allows the sear to drop and allows this piece on the top to drop, and it in turn allows the firing pin to go forward and strike the primary, thus igniting the round. The sear engagement screw, or the sear engagement adjustment, when it's set at the factory, is done so to give a predetermined amount of overlap between those two mating surfaces. So if you think of two mating surfaces, one on top of the other, when you push the trigger, you push the bottom one out and allows the top one to drop. If that angle is set too close to the edge, that's where you get your light trigger from. The problem is that those are two wear surfaces. They're two 90-degree angles, which you can see through this hole. When those begin to wear, then what happens is that when you lock the bolt down, which puts pressure on those two, it'll allow the top one to actually drop below the bottom one at an undetermined time, essentially when you didn't want it to go off. So that's why we've determined through engineering that there is a minimum set distance on this. So that all of our triggers, once they're set, and on this trigger, you can see that there's some kind of shiny, clear material on the back of it, same as on the front. That material is put there to tell the gunsmith or the owner of the weapon that this has been set and it's sealed at the factory. If that material is removed, typically that's when you can tell somebody's been in there adjusting it. On the military grade trigger, once it's set, all the trigger adjustments are staked. And there are staking marks on either side of the screws so that no operator can get in there with a screwdriver and start to mess with this trigger.